play and you're consistently neck and neck with each other, do you sense an upbeat with the players and as they go through practice and things like that?
I'll say this, Grant. We have, tremendous respect for Colorado State, and you're a graduate of there, right?
Yes, last I checked.
Yeah, last you checked. And I'll say this. I mean, they're just have great respect for their approach, just in for athletics in general. I think I've always kind of, you look at athletics, and there are a couple of routes you can go. There are times where, you can say, hey, we're going to have a bunch of sports, and we want to finish, really high in whatever this overall, there's this overall rankings deal. And what they've said, no, what we're going to do is we want to make sure that our sports that end in a ball are really, really competitive, and you see it, and their commitment. And that's a real credit to, their administration. You see it. If volleyball, those young women, the caliber of experience they're able to have, that's pretty cool, and, you look at it in football. I mean, I'll tell you this unequivocally, your school, it's a Power 5 school, should be, and a Power 5 conference too. And it doesn't take too much, to realize that after 5 to 7 years of being as a Power 5 conference, what they could do to parlay, and more important, their vision as an institution. And so there's admiration there, for that approach. And that's not at all to take away from, if you had a son or a daughter that had a chance to go play in any sport I'm trying to think of what are some other schools up there that maybe don't have that kind of investment in ball sports. If I had a son or a daughter that had a chance to go to Cornell, I think, holy cow, to be involved in any activity, be a part of their athletic program and earn an education there, or go to Denver University, you'd be tickled to death. And yet what Colorado State's, their approach has been is that, football can be important, basketball can be important, volleyball can be important. And now they don't have nearly the number of activities, and so they may not score as high on whatever, when you get to pick, includes sailing and, surfing and bowling, and those are great sports too. Every sport, anytime you're able to compete, is a great sport. And so, because of it, we have great respect for them as a school, and then certainly the quality of their football program too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Michael Gallup right now. He seems to be taking a lot of headlines. Does he compare at all to what Rashad Higgins was doing in his time there? Is he better, worse?
He's a great player, and and you look at the kind of balance they have offensively. Physically, they pound on people and have many 200-yard rushing games. The two backs they have, great compliments to each other. And then the number of targets that they have too. The tight end, through all three of the receivers. You go back to the bowl game. Looking at Johnson. They're and then a veteran quarterback that's a heck of a player too. And then physically up front, three of the five starters. Are guys that have like 18+ starts under their belt, including the center. And then defensively, extremely athletic. With I think 7 or 8 starters back on defense from last year.
You were kind of mentioning Nick Stevens there. Does he resemble at all Ganji? Does he resemble at all the San Diego State quarterback?
He's his own guy. Power-wise, throwing the ball down the field. Just arm talent. He's got a bunch of it.
What else? What else from their offense stands out? Is it really a two-man show with Stevens and Gallup, the way you see it?
No, not at all. And that's the challenge, that's involved. Dawkins and Matthews, pretty darn good. And there's some good lanes up in there to run. And then having 3 different receivers that have caught all kinds of balls and made a bunch of big plays, and a tight end that's involved too. So no, to answer that one.
I mean, you guys running the ball, back on your side of things, running the ball, it's no surprise when you guys run as much as you do, but to run 91 plays for almost 600 yards, was it just kind of what Nevada was giving you guys that stayed with what the game plan was?
It was a single game, and just one outcome or one game. I think, a single game can unfold in different ways. It's we were talking a little bit earlier about, baseball, and there are times where if it's game 5 and you think Scherzer goes into the game, we got a pretty good shot here as the Nationals. If we got a, 4-3 lead and he goes in at one inning, golly, when you come off that field at that end of the inning, all of a sudden it's 7-4. I mean, I think it just happened to be one game.
Gotcha. And what does it say about this team's mettle and fortitude, where you guys were down and then you tied and then you're trading back and forth these guys, and just the fact that it took literally all 60 minutes to walk away with a road win out there?
Yeah, and it may take every bit of that or more heading forward in any game. I'm repeating here, but we do have guys that are diligent, are quite dedicated, and are adamant about growing and developing. And I say that, I mean, that's players and coaches too. And we're a long-haul group. I mean, that is our culture. It is. It's not, sometimes it probably doesn't help if you feel like I got to have a quick sound bite or something that's a really easy quote. Now, maybe you can bring in a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old and take them down that path and get, one or two. But we just, we got to plow. We do. And I love it when the Jets fly Mach speed, or go from 0 to 60, fairly suddenly. But we're going to plod, and we're going to work, and we're going to develop.
With Tim McVeigh's foot situation, he looked pretty good Friday night. Having that extra day, could one day help him be even a little sharper this Saturday too?
I don't know. That's a good question. I do think the benefits of practicing are immense. I think, it shows whether you're handling the ball as a ball carrier or blocking at the point of attack. You have to practice to be good, consistently good. And certainly at this age and at this level you do. I know our guys, and quite frankly, that's as coaches too. You have to work every single day to improve at your course or your craft.
Will having an extra day allow him to practice a little bit? And obviously he didn't last night, but will he suit up today, tomorrow?
Could possibly go today, yes, sir.
Okay. And had he been doing any midweek practice past few weeks?
He did a little bit the last 2 weeks. He was able to go starting on about a Wednesday. The week before that, he did a little bit on a Thursday. You just aren't going to play well. You're not if you don't practice. And I don't want to say that's 100% of the time, because you're going to go find me an instant where Jordan didn't practice 2 days before the Bulls played the Cavaliers back in 1995, he might have been with the White Sox that year, but in one of those years, and he scored 48. But I mean, you need to practice. You have to practice to improve, and we are adamant about you truly do either get better or worse, and it's more than a slogan. That's the reality of life. If I'm a writer, I have to write. I don't know how well I would write, but it's what you got to do.
And with as productive as Ronald Cleveland has been with the ball, would there be an emphasis to get him the ball even more, or do you like that position's role right now?
You just aren't able always exactly to say this is how many catches or how many carries a guy is going to have, probably in what we do offensively. If we want to switch to purely to be in an I formation football team or solely an empty team, I think probably we could do that in terms of where that ball goes. And yet he's made some good sizable game plays. with either carries or through the air. He got beat, he can be a little more stout, when it comes to the carrying part of it, and he will be.
The two times the ball's come out with him, he's kind of gone airborne. Is that something is that just.
Gotta hold it.
Do you address that?
You
do
got to
you even
hold
say?
it. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you got to hold on to it. And there's a chance when you fly you could be airborne too, and you still got to be able to hold the stick. And there are times where maybe the air is not only smooth, or the plane bounces a little bit, and you got to stay steady. But that's one of the beautiful parts of sports. Maybe you learn some lessons.
And Colorado State's only allowed 3 sacks this year. With the number of times they've thrown it, that's pretty remarkable. How do you generate a pass rush against that?
That's a real task, and because of it, how frequently the quarterback's able to throw in rhythm, and how good he is when he's able to throw in rhythm. The way they're able to have routes develop down the field with guys that are extremely, great downfield speed. And then, as a corner or a DB, sometimes you think, God, these routes are getting way down the field. Then all of a sudden the response is, do I have to give a little more cushion? And then boom, here comes 3-step out on a hitch or, a quick out or a slant. They do a super job in protection. And, that's an area where you'd like to, and yet it has not happened this year. And they've played some, they went down, they've played some decent teams. Nobody's played better in, about 45 miles west of Birmingham than they have in that town, this year. And, and really you look, they've been really, really, really good in a bunch of games this year.
And that's all I've got. You guys? Yes. Oh, the quarterback receiver combination. Obviously, it's not a 2-man show, but are there any comparable combos like that you've faced?
Well, Texas Christian had a pretty good one. They had a guy named Dalton, and he threw to old J.K. out there that was pretty good. And then, in 2014, there was a crew in green and yellow that had a pretty good receiver in Higgins and had a pretty good quarterback that was drafted in the 3rd round by the Saints. That was a pretty good combination. You go through, those are a couple that come to mind. And then, I think, you go to, those are a couple that absolutely come to mind that I thought were pretty good. Oklahoma wasn't bad. I think, you think back to 2010. Landry Jones, had a good tailback and a guy named Murray and a pretty good receiver, and Kenny Stills, and had another one named Ryan Broyles. Those guys were, I thought, pretty reasonable too. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
No, I was waiting for Brent to bring up one more. Garrett Amy's been, last 2 games, he's been emerging more. He's getting more touches. What does he bring to the offense that's helped him separate himself?
Yeah, Grant, dependable, hard worker, has good quickness, lateral quickness, good ball skills, and is out there every day. I mentioned Praxton. There's just such a difference just because of there's so much that goes on in football when it comes to timing, if that's emotion, because we use a good bit of motion, if that's in sync with a quarterback or the right place when you catch a pitch, there's a certain precision that's involved in that regard. If there's communication in a blocking scheme, and more than else, just the focus and concentration that you do have in practice. It's amazing when you're alert and engaged in practice, how you improve when you're willing to kind of strain and push yourself in that regard. And, it's no different in a walkthrough. You can say, well, it's just a walkthrough the day before a game or on a Sunday, which we did, about 9 days ago. It's kind of easy to say, well, it's just a walkthrough, and I'm going to leave my headphones in, or I'm going to wear my cowboy hat sideways, or have my sweatshirt over the top of my ears. I don't, rather than being alert and engaged. And now I learn and I improve. I mean, there's just that kind of focus and concentration that helps you.
Is somebody wearing their cowboy hat sideways during the walkthrough?
Well, they may, or need my fancy backpack or something like that still have on. I mean,
playing Colorado State this weekend, you guys in the future, I believe it's in 2 years you're going to play Colorado. Does part of you wish that there was a true round robin in the state amongst you, CU and CSU?
well, I mean, I think it's good for the state. I will say this. I mean, I do think you look at football in this state now compared to 20 years ago, or even now compared to 10 years ago. The quality of high school football is good, and it's getting better and better. Now, that's because of an investment. You see it in coaching staffs, and certainly the population of the state too. There's been a pretty good boom, in terms of and football. I do think it's a state where where you realize the value in kids and children at younger ages being active. And that helps big time. We are in a state where it means something to be educated, for there to be activities for children, to be healthy, to be involved, to realize the value of being outside. I mean, all the pluses of football that way, of sweating, of getting hit in the nose sometimes, but realize, you know what, you're going to be okay there, young lady or big fella. I mean, whatever that is in an activity. And I mean, the quality of high school football gets better and better. And really, I think where that's evident is you see more prospects each year, in this state. I mean, we do, but, just the participation and the caliber of execution. And so, I mean, just anything we can do to help support that. And I think playing a game against an in-state, I do think that does help in that regard.